Does Lil Pump have a little wallet? There have been news reports that Lil Pump owes $2 million in a tax lien to the federal government, which means that he didn't pay his taxes, according to at least Radar Online and some other news sources. I haven't been able to find the actual court documents that they're talking about there, but those sources say that Lil Pump basically didn't pay taxes for several years when he was sort of at his height, making a bunch of hit singles, getting tons of money, and the IRS is coming after him for $2 million. Well, now Lil Pump is being sued by his bank. His own bank is suing him for $100,000 in Florida. He has not shown up to that lawsuit, and it looks like the bank is going to get what's called a default judgment, which means they will win by default, and they will start going and trying to take assets that Lil Pump actually has. Now, Lil Pump, when the tax lien stuff came out, he started flashing around some jewelry, some rapper chains, and said that basically each one of these chains is worth $90,000, and so I got plenty of money. But the bank will get at least one chain if that's the case from Lil Pump. And the fact that he has not shown up to answer and that he doesn't seem to have lawyers in this case does suggest that he may be broke. So let's look at the lawsuit and what the bank is saying and what's happened in the case. You have no idea who Lil Pump is. You can see there's a lot of people who do know who he is. He's got 14.6 million followers on Instagram right now. He's basically one of these SoundCloud rappers. So they start out on SoundCloud kind of independently. They post their music on the SoundCloud app. And then if it hits up the charts, then people get very interested in them. Lil Pump's been very successful. He has worked with like Kanye West, Lil Wayne. He had a bunch of hit albums, a bunch of hit singles. One of his tracks was on Deadpool 2 for like the soundtrack. So he's definitely had a very big career and obviously has a lot of fans when you hit that many people on Instagram. So he is definitely has been kind of a big thing and certainly would have made a lot of money. So the question is, why is he not paying his bank? And so we'll go look at what the bank is saying in the lawsuit and kind of look at what a lawsuit looks like whenever a bank decides to try to collect on you and what he was doing with that bank. This is what's called a complaint. That is the first document that gets filed anytime there is a lawsuit, and it lays out what the bank is saying. You can see that this is City National Bank. If you've never heard of them, they're a big bank. They've got about $100 billion in assets. They are suing Gazi Garcia. That is Lil Pump's real name. And they're suing him in Florida, which is where he lives. So you can see that they say it's action for damages for more than $100,000. They say that's where a borrower resides. The borrower will be Lil Pump, person who borrows money. And they say that they basically, they entered into a personal line of credit agreement with Lil Pump for the amount of $300,000 that has this, what they call a maturity date, which that's when it comes due and you have to pay it on November 1st, 2020. And we're going to look at that line of credit agreement at the end of this. And they say they basically advanced money, this $300,000 or so to, I guess it didn't have to be the whole amount, but they advanced money to Lil Pump. A line of credit, if you don't know how it works, it's basically like you go to a bank. It's not like a home loan. It's basically like you would have a certain amount of money, in this case $300,000, where you can just borrow up to that amount. So kind of like a credit card, but like lower interest rate and much bigger. And it's something that kind of rich people get. So if you or businesses or things like that, when they have a lot of businesses will have money coming in at sort of weird times or times of the year or whatever. So they may need to have an amount that they can borrow from if they're going to be down a month. They don't get money one month, but they get money the next month. They may need that line of credit to kind of operate. Why Lil Pump was getting it, one of the reasons may be to spend beyond what he was able to spend, which is a reason that an individual person might get one of these if he thinks he's got more money coming in later and he wants to buy something or be able to buy stuff before he actually gets his money. That's something that he might do. It is something that financially is not a good idea, especially in an industry like being a rapper or a singer or anything like that, because your money is not guaranteed and your career can go up and down very dramatically. So you can see they say that Lil Pump, who's the borrower, defaulted under the line of credit agreement because he failed to repay it on that maturity date when it came due. Then this is the bank basically told them, they sent him a letter saying, look, you defaulted on this. You did not pay us the money back. And then the bank sends them through an attorney, which is what they say counsel. Counsel just means lawyer. And the lawyer sends him a notice, hey, you've defaulted this, we're going to sue you. And despite all this stuff, Lil Pump still has not paid back the bank. And they say that the total amount that Lil Pump owes is $102,492.14. The bank's going to want every penny that they can get. And then plus, and that's like part principal, part interest. Interest is just the amount you pay. You pay a percent every year, essentially, or sometimes every month or whatever, for like to compensate the bank for lending you the money and the risk they take doing it. And then they also are going to want their attorney's fees. So what are they saying? They're saying he breached their contract. They're saying that Lil Pump, basically that he had this contract, he didn't pay it. It's a pretty simple lawsuit. Most debt collection lawsuits, if you've never, hopefully you've never been involved in a debt collection lawsuit, but they actually are like very short ones. Usually the defendant just kind of hasn't paid, and there's not a lot to fight about in the court. I actually have, sometimes like in a couple cases have gone and defended people on debt collection stuff. And if you go down to the actual court when they do these things, I went there and to one in California, and it was just me and a couple debt collector attorneys in the room, and they were just running through cases over and over and over. So they would do, one attorney would stand up and do 15, 20 cases because the people who had money just never show up. And that's what Lil Pump has done here. He has just not shown up. Usually the reason is people can't afford attorneys. I don't know whether that's the case with Lil Pump, but certainly you would expect something like this, that he would want to pay it off sooner rather than later, because he might have to pay the attorney's fees. And the longer it goes, the more chance that the bank gets, if the bank gets a judgment on him, which is the judge saying, look, Lil Pump owes the money, they can just go take whatever they want. They could, they can start sending the sheriff to his house. They can just start grabbing stuff. They can sell his chains. They can try to get his music rights, even if he still has them, or if the record company doesn't have them. If they're like with him, they could get, he has shares in a production company or something like that. They could get them. So it's definitely, you do not want to let the bank get $100,000 legal judgment against you because of the damage that can cause when someone starts just grabbing stuff that you may prefer them to take something that instead of what they just pick at random, or maybe not at random. Maybe they pick stuff to sort of put pressure on you. So what do they say here? This is just it's called an affidavit, which is a sworn statement. And basically they're just saying, here's this document that we attach is true. The document is the line of credit. And that's what we're talking about above. You can see it's for Gazi Garcia. It's to this group in Encino, California, which looks like maybe a management company. That's kind of like care of, just means that's instead of the bank running around talking to Lil Pump personally, we're giving out this address for somebody else who will be in charge of like taking the mail if you want to talk to him, which is definitely something celebrities would do. So you can see the bank has an entertainment banking team. So it looks like they do this kind of regularly for celebrities. You can see this interest rate, 5.5%, pretty low compared to a credit card. But he has this sort of long line of credit agreement that just says all the stuff that he's going to do and all the different, here's, you ever wonder what a Lil Pump autograph looks like? There you go. That if you have one and you're wondering if it's genuine, that is the Gazi Garcia autograph. And then they have sort of these exhibits, which are the letters that they were sending. So this, if you've ever had a debtor trying to collect, or rather a creditor trying to collect money from you, you'll start getting letters like this. They'll start saying basically like, this is sort of the first one where it's not really collection. It's just, hey man, this loan's up. When are you going to pay us? And then they go and, letters will get progressively more, we'll start looking at some of their collection ones. And then they're like, you better pay. It goes from thank you for, working with us to pay now. And, they say you're in default. The whole amount of the current loan's due. Bunch of legal stuff about how we don't waive our rights. You better pay within 10 days of this letter. Otherwise, we will move forward with initiating a lawsuit against you. You may be responsible for attorney's fees and things like that. As a vice president of the bank sending this letter, his autograph's probably not as valuable, but then they've got, we sent this to this management company in Florida. It looks like that is someone sort of working for Lil Pump. And then the lawyers step in and start sending him, a debt collector letter. There's all this stuff that they have to comply with. Debt collecting is like one of the hardest parts of, if you want to be an attorney doing that, you got to be real careful because there's a lot of ways to mess that up that could give Lil Pump a way to like sue these people back. It is very easy for them to mess stuff up, and they do it all the time. And often debt collecting companies just sort of don't really follow the law anyway, and they just don't care. But so the sum of all this is the bank is coming after him. He has not paid. The bank is attempting to get a default judgment. There's a couple of technicalities that were happening in the suit that kept that from happening immediately, but they're moving forward and they will be getting this judgment and going after Lil Pump. So what does that mean for these reports that Lil Pump owes $2 million to the IRS? Is he really broke? Is he now Lil Wallet? We don't know for sure. It is abnormal, I would say, for this lawsuit to be going on this long and someone not to just pay him back if they have that money, if he really has access to it. And one of the things, you'll see, if you're a fan of hip hop or know anything about it, you know that it is very common for like rappers to go just bankrupt, like basically get a big hit and get some hits, get money coming in, and then their career, doesn't stay at the exact same peak that they're at, and then they spend like it's the peak forever, and then they blow it all. That's not that surprising. I don't think it's unique to rap. It's something where, if you hand someone in their early 20s who's never had money, millions upon millions of dollars, and people are probably telling them, oh, sure, they're maybe not their friends, but their cronies or entourage or whatever, maybe saying, oh yeah, spend, because they benefit from that. So if you got a bunch of people around you saying spend, you're going to be the king forever. You're the man, Lil Pump. Take us to the club, take us to whatever. It's easy for someone who just gets a ton of money to overspend. They don't tell us about personal finance in school. Nobody gets trained anymore like they should. But so it would not be surprising for someone to, he would not be the first. He would be one of many people who have come through hip hop or music or movies or anything like that. Ask Nicolas Cage about his dinosaur skull that he spent a lot of his money on, or Johnny Depp bought like 10 houses or all this stuff. There's a lot of celebrities who do that, and then they realize, oh no. But there are many who recover. So Lil Pump, he has his 15 million followers on Instagram. Even if he owes 2 million to the IRS and $1 million to the bank, it's something he probably could make the money back over the next couple of years doing concerts, even if he's not at the same peak that he was when he got sort of his main hits. So who knows? We'll see. Definitely needs to, if he is in that, got everything in check, because frankly, the bank is much less concerning than the IRS. You never want to be having those guys have a lien and not being able to pay it back, because they will get you. But we'll see. And if you ever become a SoundCloud rapper who gets a hit, save your money. Don't spend the money you get and assume your career lasts forever. You have to, if you get what's called an event is a giant amount of money that comes in, that bigger than you've ever had before. You've got to assume that you are never going to earn another penny, and save it all, and don't blow it on Lambos and chains and jewelry and whatever mansions and things like that. You got to save enough that you can live off the money that it makes for the rest of your life, and then you can take the next album and spend the money from that one. So if you want to see more celebrity videos and more crazy lawsuits going on, hit subscribe or click on some of the videos on the uncards, and I've got many more for you.